Okay, while rummaging through my game collection, I came across this old magazine, one of my first S&T magazines. And I was thinking about what got me interested in ancient battles and the ancient world. And I kind of thought it might be this issue, which is really the first Ancients game I'd ever tried. But let's go back in time even further. When I really think about it, I think the first time I got interested in the ancient world was when I was, I guess 12 years old. I think it was in grade 5 we took ancient history. And it was these comic books, Caesar's Conquests in particular, I was fascinated by. And of course the Iliad was another one of my old favorites. And a movie and a comic book I enjoyed very much at that time, Hercules Unchained, starring Steve Reeves. And the comic book Julius Caesar. Now I remember not really liking the Julius Caesar comic book very much. Of course I didn't understand that it was really Shakespeare. But as an adult, Julius Caesar is one of my favorite plays of Shakespeare. But let's get back to S&T number 25, February of 1971. I think that was my first S&T magazine, and it contained the game Centurion, which they also called tactical game number 13 or something. Tactical game 13, yeah. And the counters were paper. They weren't even mounted. I think it was the next issue that S&T started producing mounted counters. So we played this thing with little paper counters, which was just ridiculous. But the game, I just loved the thing. Now the rules were extremely simple. This is just a copy of them. And it had several scenarios. And it was quite easy to learn. The tables were pretty primitive by today's standards. Straight odds with disrupted and eliminated results. They had a big oversized chart. This one I've had to shrink down, giving you the order of battle of the units. There were swordsmen and pikemen and stuff like that. Your turn record, kind of. Again, this has been reduced. I mean, it was primitive by any standards. Now, the game was popular enough that SPI later released the game as a boxed version, still calling it Centurion, and it was in the flat tray versions, and I never did own that one because, as I later found out, it was going for insane collector prices. So, and I knew that the game was kind of dated, and I didn't feel like paying $150 for a game that was, close to 40, 45 years old. Although I liked the game, I didn't like it that much to get a boxed edition. Now, be that as it may, one fellow released files of the counters in color on, I don't know, Board Game Geek or somewhere on the web. I got them. So I decided to print out my own counters, the light tan and the blue, plus the counters to show square, stuff like that. And I downloaded the charts too. In other words, I kind of made my own game. Now, the original board was black and white, believe it or not, no colors at all. But this one fellow released this color version. This is a photo-reduced copy of it. And I'll show you the copy I made. Okay, so that's what the game looks like enlarged. I think the fellow did a nice job on it. And I took some modifications myself. I think I put it in Paint Shop Pro or something. Made the forest green and just gussied it up a little bit. But I'll zoom in on the counters to show you what they look like. Okay, what you see before you is the simple setup for a scenario called the Servile War, which purports to be between the forces of Spartacus the gladiator and the consuls, the Roman consuls. Now the counters are very simple, but I always liked them. I thought they were very elegant. They showed the frontage of the unit with the little half hex side sword showing it's a swordsman, and the attack, defense, and movement. I always kind of just like these counters. They're simple. I even like the terrain too. Just, you know, I knew that that was a slope and that was the top of the hill and that was the bottom. There was just no arguing about the terrain. The stacking was limited. I think it was 1 or 2. And depending on the scenario, I think the Romans could stack 3 and the barbarians and servile forces could only stack 2. I don't remember exactly. But in a very simple way, they showed how the Roman army was almost undefeatable in tactics. Here's your cavalry, 119s. As you probably know, the Romans did not concentrate much on cavalry. It was only an auxiliary arm for the infantry. That's why they're only 1s. You get all these 4s. And you got some cool little skirmisher units there. Spartacus forces don't have those. And how did the game play? Well, it was basic hex grid principles. You got into a battle with your odds table. You rolled the die, and you either eliminated the guy or you dispersed them. You flipped them over, and then the dispersed units could not move or attack. It was an extremely simple system, certainly nowhere even near the great battles of history by GMT. That's a much more sophisticated system. But this, you know, I mean, it was simple, but it did show you ancient warfare. Now, since this video is meant to be just a quick walk down memory lane, on the upper right there, you can see that those are the ancient games that have survived or I've kept. The top one there, Columbia Games, that's Athens and Sparta. Below it is Imperium Romanum 3, a gigantic game, of which I will never play. I punched it, but I'll never play it. That's a master's thesis on the Roman Empire. You can see my video about that. Below that is Republic of Rome, one of my absolute favorite ancient games. Almost never get to play it though, because you need to get 5 or 6 people together. Below that, Hannibal, the original Avalon Hill. Love that game. And Caesar, which is all about the Siege of Alesia. Below that, Nero, an absolutely failed game, but beautiful counters, beautiful map. I don't know why I've kept it. Maybe just to get together with non-gamers, not sure. Over to the left a little bit, we've got the Great Battles of Alexander. I've kept that. That's one I will keep for good. Sword of Rome, one of my favorite ancient games too. War Galley, which I almost never play. And of course, SPQR, which I'll keep in my permanent collection too. And Storm over Jerusalem. Love that game. It's about the tactical siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And the game Cataphract. Now, I did not keep that title of the Great Battles of History for the tactical game. I kept it for the strategic game that is also within that box. Now, you might well ask, well, where's all the rest of the Great Battles of History series? Well, ultimately, I didn't keep them. They are extremely detailed games, and even the simple Great Battles of History, I never really got into. So that's my mini library of Ancients games. But good old Centurion will always hold a special place in my heart, and like I said, just a walk down memory lane. And for those of you who haven't seen Centurion or played it, well, if you can pick it up for a song, do so, but don't pay collector prices for $200 boxed games that are 40 years old, unless you're a real collector. Anyway, that's it for this video, and thank you for watching.